Following on from the very successful series of simultaneous displays that Guildford Chess Club organised to celebrate its 125th anniversary, we've also tried to reignite the junior chess section of the club. The first meeting of the season took place last Monday, and we had roughly 35 kids attending, a large number of parents, and by and large the evening was very successful. Obviously, in the first week, it's difficult to know everybody and their capabilities. So it was important to split the group up into smaller groups and to run a training session on this first evening, which I did. And the focus was on the squares F7 and F2, generally thought to be the weakest squares on the board at the beginning of the game. And I showed an interesting game which the children found actually very exciting, which illustrated just how complicated the battle for these weak squares can become in the early phase of the game. I mean, it's not just a question of marching down to F7 and delivering checkmate. It's much more complicated than that. And despite the fact we had beginners mixed in with really experienced players like England internationals and so on, the evening went well. So this is a game from Tula in 2002 between Igor Kalichkin and Farhad Tahirov, and it's certainly a game White would want to forget. Anyway, he starts with an opening which is incredibly popular on the junior circuit, the Italian game, and Black played knight f6, inviting White to begin complications with knight g5. Well, of course, these days, if you play this opening, on the internet or against really experienced players, the majority of them play d3 and go into some sort of slow Italian game position where White is trying for a small edge out of the opening. But knight g5 is an opening that plays for much higher stakes. And, of course, in junior chess, a lot of people just fall for the trap straight away. f7 is attacked. There are only two reasonable moves to defend it, the first of which is d5, blocking the threat. And then we could get the famous fry liver attack if Black makes a mistake. Knight takes f7. I can't get into this here. That might be a project for future junior sessions. Or dropping back, Black can play bishop c5, which was the move featured in this game. And most of the groups on Monday actually thought this was a mistake. Well, of course, to the untutored eye, it looks like a clear mistake. Isn't Black just blundering here? The knight comes into f7. And surprisingly, most of the groups wanted to choose that move without actually considering the alternatives. I think only one group suggested bishop takes f7. And this kid was so good, he bashed out a few moves of the main line. So it just goes to show, there were some experienced players in the audience. At any rate, let's concentrate on knight takes f7 now. And now Black plays bishop takes f2 check. This is called the Wilkes-Barre or Traxler variation. And it's very unwise for White to enter into it unless he knows exactly what he's doing. Now, we quickly dismissed king takes f2, knight takes e4. I mean, obviously, Black is going to get a strong attack. The position's going to be uncomfortable for White to defend. You may be able to defend this position if you've got a supercomputer with you or if you're a genius. But with queen h4 coming up, White generally avoids this variation. Although, as I say, if you really want to study this variation deeply, then you might just be able to get away with it. But going back, in our featured game, king f1 was played. And now Black has to play queen e7. And that was a move which everybody found. And now White gets greedy and takes the rook, which of course is very instructive when you're teaching juniors. Don't be greedy in the opening. Don't go pawn grabbing or grabbing all sorts of material because you might fall behind in development. I mean, we're returning to the days of Paul Morphy here, where Morphy was mowing down his opponents simply because he understood chess much better than they did. And this type of thing, sacrificing for the initiative, was a revelation at that time. But it's something that Morphy introduced to chess and improved our understanding. Anyway, d5 was the move, and asked to forecast what Black would play in this position, I think only one group of 7 or 8 got this move. And of course, it's a very good move because it brings all of black's remaining pieces into play, the queenside pieces predominantly. Anyway, white kept on grabbing material and black hopped in to d4. At this point, Nigel Povar pointed out the interesting trap. If white played bishop takes d5, black would play bishop g4. Which again, the juniors found quite instructive. And of course, it is the end of the white queen. So white took with the pawn, black hopped in, and now white plays c3, which at a higher level, of course, is not the only move. You know, white can play stuff like d6. There is a lot of theory on this to learn if you want to play it at master level. But at junior level, you know, this opening is an absolute killer. And of course, Dave Rumans was one of the biggest specialists in this line. Dave passed away recently. Sorry to hear that. But of course, he introduced a lot of kids to this line. And I dare say black was mowing down a lot of junior opponents by playing in this way. But at any rate, bishop g4 is the move here, gaining time. And white's only got one move now. He's got to give a check. And now comes a very instructive move. Knight to d7. This is instructive for two reasons. Firstly, black retains the option of castling on the queen side still. Yes, that is possible. And secondly, black might be thinking about using the open f file for attack against the poor old white king, which is stranded on f1. Well, Kalichkin took on f2. A move that seems horrendously risky, but my impression is he didn't just like his position. You know, I mean, you can get into this type of mess, and if you don't know what you're doing, this black attack must seem frightening. So he probably just thought, well, I'm going to take this and hope for the best. Just dropping back, black can chuck away another piece here. White takes on d4, and let's see what happens after that. Then I think queen f6 is a very useful move. And now we see one of the points of black's last move. Black's vacated the f6 square. And despite that, white can continue to take things here. Now queen f4 looks very, very strong. And I'm not sure white can defend himself against this attack. Well, he can go back. Obviously, the queen can be removed here. That must win. But maybe bishop d4 is even stronger. In comes the queen. e2 disappears. And then black just gets a winning attack. I might have taken the queen earlier, but there you go. So dropping back, king takes f2 was played. I mean, white can take either of the black pieces. He's still going to run into a crushing attack, whatever happens. And now the queen came out to h4 check. We weren't able to investigate all the lines in this short 45-minute session, but we certainly tackled the game variation where king f1 was played. But I want to just take a brief look at g3 here, because it is very instructive. Now, if we just drop back, the majority of people in the group wanted to play queen f6 here, check. But the reason queen h4 check is much better is that if white plays g3, black now plays queen f6 check, and white has loosened his position, giving black access to the square f3. And that's really important. As we will see in the illustrative line, if white goes back, black now plays the killer blow, queen f5. White may take the knight. In comes the queen check. King f2. And now here we go. Black has access to that square. Well, I mean, what is white to play? White is essentially completely stuffed here. If he tries king e1, well, I mean, king g1, bishop h3 would be the first sign of total chaos. If king e1 here, castles on the queen side. Beautiful move. No expense is spared, no time is spared in getting all the black pieces into the game. And if rook f1, we've got a beautiful variation here. Black's getting all his pieces into the game. The king must wander from pillar to post. And in the end, he's going to be mated in an ignominious way. Let's just see this. If he goes king e1, we go check. That's a nice move. He blocks. That's a nice checkmate. Going back, if he goes king f1, this is even better. There's a check. The king goes to e1. There's another check, driving the king up the board. Up he comes. He keeps on coming. He's coming even further. He's coming no more, because that's checkmate. Extraordinary variations. That's the type of thing that attracts people to the Wilkes-Barre, because, you know, it's beautiful chess. And quite exciting for children to see stuff like this. Kind of fires their imagination. Well, going back now, we go back to the game where white just played the miserable king f1. Black castled on the queen side, and now knight to f7. A very feeble move by white, who just seems to be unaware that he's about to be checkmated. Well, rook f8. What is white to play? There was a previous game that ended abruptly after d6. Black just took the knight, and there will be checkmate on the horizon. Meanwhile, in the game, after g3, black went bishop h3 check, king g1, queen e4, closing in on the target, and white decided to resign. And the final position tells a story. A lot of white pieces undeveloped, all of black's pieces in the game. White spent a lot of time grabbing material in the opening, ignoring the fact that he needed to develop his pieces and get his king to safety, and he got crushed as a result. Well, Guildford Chess Club junior section meets weekly in the Guildford Institute from 6 p.m. to 7 p.m. We're on the lookout for new members. We will provide all members with training. We're going to split the wider group up into smaller groups and give each section training. We'll be running tournaments. We'll be giving out prizes. We'll be giving all sorts of encouragement to young players, because that is the way Guildford Chess Club is going to face the future.